Hi guys, I'm Nathan, and long time no see. It's been too long since I have put up a video for you guys, and more specifically, it's been too long since I've updated you guys on what I'm doing with Blue-White-Red Geist. Especially being that this is my favorite version of the deck I think that I've ever played since I've been playing Blue-White-Red Geist in Modern. So that being said, I want to go over the deck at least a little bit today and play some games that we hopefully win. So it's going to be fun. Let's do that. First off, let me tell you a bit about where this deck comes from. I can't take credit for this version. Really, this version of Blue-White-Red Geist is the brainchild and product of a lot of testing of three main individuals. Larry Swasey, you can find his blog. I think if you Google Swasey Shuffle, it's over at Blogspot. Scotty Mac over at legitmtg.com and Jason Clark at legitmtg.com. And those three guys were running the deck on stream and tweeting about it. And you know I love Blue-White-Red Geist, so I wanted to take part in any way that I could. So I was playing the list myself and giving them feedback on Twitter. And it turns out that all of their suggestions were great. I did have one small contribution in the removal of one of the 8 fetch lands in favor of I'm playing a Sulfur Falls. I think that they also tried Glacial Fortress, and they may have even added the 8th fetch back in. But personally, I like running the 7 fetches. But mostly, I can't take credit. This is their list. I really do love playing it, though. I've definitely adopted it. And like I said before, I think it's my favorite version of Blue-White-Red Geist. So let's talk a little bit about it. I can't remember exactly what list I made a video about last, so I'll just go over some of the more interesting points. And if I'm repeating myself, guys, I'm sorry. Like I said, we're running 7 fetches. We dropped a Scalding Tarn, which at first might seem counterintuitive because it's a blue deck. However, we do run 2 islands, and the reason Arid Mesa is ever so slightly more important is we want access to white so that we can cast Wear Tear in order to combat Blood Moon. So that's the thinking behind that decision. Also, the reason we're not running 8 is we were running more fetches than we were running lands to target, and so there were occasionally times where our fetches were dead, and I wanted to avoid that. So what else? Okay, so Ghost Quarter. I may have talked about this in the past. We're running Ghost Quarter for a couple of different reasons. One, it is better against Tron because, you know, with Tectonic Edge, you're limited to being able to activate it when they have 4 lands in play. Well, Tron may already be dropping a Karn on you when that happens. So Ghost Quarter is better in that regards. There's also an interesting synergy that can come up with regards to Path to Exile. You know, if you Ghost Quarter something, a lot of decks in Modern don't run many basics, so they go to get that basic. Well, it might make your Path to Exile better later, and vice versa. You may path something, have them get a basic, and then later your Ghost Quarter is just a wasteland. So that interaction is interesting to note. Continuing on down the mana base, Moorland Haunt has actually been fantastic. A lot of times it serves to block something like a Tarmogoyf and prevent damage. But also, people don't generally want to waste a removal spell on a Moorland Haunt Spirit token. And in games that are grindy, games where damage matters, which is basically all of them because you really play this deck as a red deck, getting that extra value from your creature is just fantastic. So I've really been happy with Moorland Haunt. I've even had it carry a Batterskull, which is sweet. So the deck runs... excuse me, the full suite of all the major removal spells. It runs 4 Helix, 4 Bolt, and 4 Lightning Bolts. 4 Path, 4 Bolt, and 4 Helix. And that's really one sort of committing to the Geist of St. Traft plan. So we're running as many ways as we can to remove blockers. But it's also committing to the fact that this deck is really an aggressive deck. I mean, you're really only spending the first turn or 2 in a reactive fashion, and ideally after that, you're playing Geist on turn 3, you're attacking, you're sending Burn to the Dome where you can, and so running all 4 of those is committing to both of those plans. You'll notice the deck doesn't run any mana leaks, and that's because we are we aren't as interested in just answering your threat as we are delaying whatever card it is and drawing ourselves into another burn spell or into Geist of St. Traft or another angel. You'll notice now that the deck is running more creatures. Instead of the 1 or 2 clicks and 1 or 2 angels, it's running 3 of each, so it's running a higher creature density than a lot of the previous blue-red Geist lists that you may have seen, in addition to a Batterskull and a Keranos. So the deck is more proactively trying to kill the opponent. And so, in addition to all of the burn and the extra creatures, you really want Remand to be able to draw you into that next creature or that burn spell to finish the game. So, as I said, 3 Vendilion Cliques. Vendilion Clique is an efficient beater. And because we're not running mana leaks, actually, in some ways, Vendilion Clique almost acts as a mana leak on a stick in that you're able to play it and dispatch from their hand the threat that you don't want to resolve, but then also have a 3/1 flyer to hopefully get some damage through and reduce your opponent's life total. The 3 Restoration Angel, along with 3 Vendilion Cliques and 4 Snapcaster Mage, means that getting extra value out of Restoration Angel's blink ability, besides saving Geist of St. Traft, comes up pretty often. There's been many times where I've flashed in Restoration Angel to bounce a Snapcaster Mage to get an extra 3 points of damage in from a lightning bolt that's in the yard. So that's sweet. Restoration Angel obviously also works great with Geist of St. Traft. You're able to blink him before combat damage to save him. And, there was a time when I thought, well, hey, that's not that great. But when it actually is really good, because then you're able to swing back on the next turn for even more damage. Plus, you're playing all the removal spells, so maybe you're able to remove a creature and then swing back. But Restoration Angel is amazing. We have the 3 Electrolyze. The Electrolyze is just another way to sometimes get some incremental damage in and kind of keep that card velocity going that I was talking about. Electrolyze is sometimes practically like a 3-for-1, it feels like. But Electrolyze is just an all-star spell, and I love being able to run Electrolyze. There was a time when Deathrite Shaman was banned, people weren't running it because everybody thought Zoo was going to be a thing, and they said, hey, Electrolyze doesn't kill wild Nacatl, but we're running it. We're running 3 of them. I don't regret it. And, versus a card like Spell Snare, which Spell Snare I sometimes wish I had a copy of, the pure and simple fact is that Electrolyze can further kill our opponent where Spell Snare doesn't necessarily do that. So it's very important to think of this deck as you're playing it like a red deck. You are always sort of looking at, okay, what's their life total? It's 12. Well, between these 2 bolts and a Snapcaster Mage, their life total's 3, and I think there's a strong likelihood that I'm going to draw into additional burn to finish up the game. So you're always kind of trying to think of how much you're trying to think of a lot of pushing damage through, getting damage in. Because if you don't have a way to kill them now, you're probably going to draw into one. And then lastly, at the top of the curve, we have Batterskull and Keranos. Keranos has been ridiculous. There are times where I'm in a long grinding matchup against Jund, and I top deck a Keranos and play it, and it completely takes over the game. It kills their creatures. It sends damage to the face. Sometimes... Like, I've had a bolt in hand, and with the Keranos trigger, flipped the Lightning Helix, so that does 3 damage, fired off the Lightning Helix, and then fired off the bolt, and dealt 9 damage, and closed out the game that way. Keranos is a great card. Now, in this list, at one point in time, they and I were testing 2 Keranos in the main board. However, you don't want to be in a situation where you have a Keranos, and then you draw another one. You don't want cards being dead at that high, that high of a power level. So the main deck Batterskull is good, and Batterskull is just such a powerful spell. I've put it on a Vendilion Clique. I've lived the dream online and in a paper tournament and put it on a Geist of St. Traft. Batterskull's great, and some decks just practically auto lose to it. All right, so that's the main deck. Let's check out the sideboard. Okay, so we have 2 Wear Tear. That's really for the Affinity matchup. It's good in the Infect matchup. It's good in just any matchup where you're dealing with artifacts and enchantments. Explosives is a great card that we primarily bring in against Jund, but it's also good against Lingering Souls. It's decent against Boggles. It's good against Affinity. It has a lot of application, but then even when you encounter, much like Wear and Tear, when you encounter decks that you don't necessarily feel like you have answers to, a lot of times Electrolyze serves as an answer. So we're running 2 Magma Spray. These initially were 2 Pillar of Flame, but Magma Spray is just more versatile. One of the interactions I learned about on Twitter that didn't even occur to me right away, and something that makes it so much better than Pillar with regards to, is they're really in here for Birthing Pod. They're in here for Voice of Resurgence. They're in here for Kitchen Finks. And so let's say that you're playing Birthing Pod and they have a Resolved Birthing Pod. Well, they play a Kitchen Finks. In addition to that life gain and the battlefield trigger, you can Magma Spray Kitchen Finks and they're not able to pot it. So that's great. We have Celestial Purge. Celestial Purge is good against... it can be good against Storm. It's good against Liliana, which is what it's primarily for. It can also be good against Mono Red Burn. It can be really good against Splinter Twin. Has a lot of relevant targets in the format. So we're running one of those. Combust is good against other control decks, running Celestial Colonnades. Obviously, it's also good against Splinter Twin. There's Snapcaster decks. It just has a lot of application, and the fact that it's uncounterable makes it really powerful, and 5 damage is a lot. Now we have 3 Aven Mindcensors. These are primarily for Birthing Pod, but we also bring these in against Tron. Anger of the Gods we bring in against Birthing Pod. We'd obviously bring it in any aggressive matchups. I've even brought it in against Infect. Counterflux is for the other blue decks. You actually also bring it in against Burn because it's just another spell that sort of offsets the damage that their burn spells do. And then we have a second Batterskull in the sideboard. We bring that in against decks like Jund or Junk or just any matchup that we think is going to go long, because along with the second Batterskull and Keranos, we're really able to sort of increase the density of very powerful cards in our deck that we can draw. All right, so that's the deck. I'm really excited about it. I've really been enjoying playing it. Last weekend I played it in the TCG Player State Championship here in Hawaii. I narrowly missed top 8. I think it's primarily because I had bad tiebreakers, but my game win percentage was 71.4%. So that's pretty high. I was very happy with that. I did go with a friend of mine, and he was one of my last games. He ended up having to drop to go pick up a friend from the airport. So we played. I won. He dropped. I'm sure that hurt my tiebreakers. So I didn't get into the top 8, but the deck performed awesome. A lot of people underestimate the deck. They see Geist and they think, oh, well, this deck isn't that great. But so many of your matchups with this version of the deck are better than they have been before. I've played Birthing Pod with this version 4 or 5 times in paper. I haven't lost a match, and that's a match that previously was very difficult. So, yeah, really excited about the deck. I'm really happy with the work those 3 guys that I mentioned did, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah, so let's play some games, and see you soon.